was the most difficult thing when you were starting to make that transition? I know we talked there. I know that you talked about in your first episode that, you were, you had the triple bypass. So you had this like false sense of security of like, oh, I'm good. Like I shouldn't have to worry about this anymore. And then round two comes along. So what was it that allowed you? I mean, because that's what has that been? 15 years ago?
It's been almost 20 years.
20? Yeah. So like, the first time there's a lot smaller of a gap between. So it seems like you've made some changes that stuck around this time. What exactly were some of those changes?
Well, I was living my life like most people do, just not thinking much about what they put into their body. And it finally caught up with me. My father had a heart attack at 49 and died, and my grandfather was 47. I was 51 when I was just having some pressure and didn't feel good, and I went to the hospital, and they said I was having a heart attack. 4 of my arteries were 90% shut, and I think it's a left descending artery. It's what they call the widowmaker.
Yeah.
That was like 70%, and they said they were going to stent the other 4, and I'm kind of glad they didn't. There was a reason for that. But then they said, well, you know what? You're not a candidate for a stent there, but you are a candidate for quadruple bypass surgery, and that's what happened. So what happened after that was like you said, I went off with a false sense of security. Hey, everything's great again. I can just continue my life like I always did. Then it was about 7 years later that I was out with my wife. We were picking up garden supplies, and all of a sudden I just felt this. It wasn't a pain. It was just odd. You know how sometimes you go out into the really cold air and it hits your lungs?
Yeah, kind of that burning.
Yeah. That's what it was like. And then all of a sudden, I started sweating. I got really weak. I couldn't stand up. And so I ended up going to the hospital. And don't ever go to the hospital if you don't have to. But what happened was they did an angiogram, and they saw that I had a blockage there from one of my grafts. You see, they don't give you arteries. They don't swap artery for artery when they do that operation. They do a vein, and veins aren't as strong as arteries. They're not supposed to be arteries. They're supposed to be veins. But your cardiac tree, mine now has 4 veins where arteries used to be. And they say those don't hold up over for too long. But mine have done really well. Okay, but get back to what happened. I did have a heart attack, a full-blown heart attack. And what that meant was that I had a blockage and what they call an embolism, where it just absolutely blocked that passage to the heart, and they went in and put a stent. While I was in the hospital, I said, I'm not going to do this anymore. The quadruple bypass was bad enough, but now I had a real heart attack, and fortunately, I didn't have a lot of damage, but I made up my mind right then and there. That was the end of it. So that was my epiphany, and
gotcha. Yeah, that's kind of like a good, really like rock bottom point that, we could call it, is because you've been through that recovery once. Now you're going through the recovery twice. And I know that the recovery is no joke. I mean, you're talking probably of months of recovery and getting used to things again. And then having to go through that again. And like you said, going and having to be in the hospital. This past year, I spent a lot of time in the hospital. I was diagnosed with cancer. So finding that diagnosis was actually lucky. I went in with a ruptured appendix, and I, when they were doing the CT to say, hey, we need to get you in emergency surgery right now, they're like, as a heads up, the surgeon's also going to be taking out a couple of lymph nodes to scan, or not to scan, but for a biopsy and really understand kind of what's going on and why those select lymph nodes were so enlarged. So found out I had lymphoma, and then couple weeks later, I was back in the hospital because I had a very random surgical abscess. So I do know, I can kind of sympathize with you a little bit on the just going in and out of the hospital is not fun. And one of the things that kind of like I've always been into being active my whole life. I've always played sports, but I've never understood nutrition as much as I should have, and I've never taken that
Mm-hmm.
part because, like
Mm-hmm.
you said, honestly, like for me, getting up and moving, that's the easy part. Get up, get outside, move around. But the hard part is being consistent with my diet and being consistent, like mentally, kind of with everything, and that's where it's like, well, the cancer is gone for now, but I need to take care of myself. One, that way my body is healthy for it, but also, with cancer, higher carbohydrate, higher sugar diets are a lot more impactful and negative,
Yes.
negative attributes. You're feeding that disease. Um, so I definitely understand where you're coming from there, and for me, you know, the hardest part is to find like a way to combine it, because especially when you have a partner and you're married or you're in a relationship, it's really easy to do these things, when you're just a individual and you don't have to consider someone else. I feel like, or obviously, like, you still have to make the mental decision, but it's more difficult to try and get someone to go along on you with that journey and help them understand, because it's not fair for me that I want to do this, and I have to have a certain, like, for me, because I know I have a lack of self-control, so I'm just like, get the cookies away, get the chocolate chips away, hide them from me. It's not fair for me to say, we can't have any of that in the house when
Right.
she doesn't have control problems, right? So now it's kind of like being able to find fun ways where we're both cooking in the kitchen and we're looking to like make recipes. So I'll grab a family recipe that she loves, and I'm like, all right, well, let me sub out a couple of things. Let's try, let's take out the regular pasta. Let's put in, some of the bonza pasta. I really like it. That's been a cool tool for me. It's just the chickpea based pasta, um, and just kind of finding ways to incorporate, instead of me isolating myself, being able to dive into that with them, and with my wife, to allow that kind of like journey together. Did you have
Well,
any
that's only
problems?
that's only
Okay.
gonna be, that's only gonna benefit them as well.
Yeah, definitely,
Your
because it's like,
wife and your kids.
yeah, because it's gonna, instead of like eating, because for my wife, that word eating healthy is really like a negative, like a really negative like mindset, because
Yeah.
like in her mind, eating healthy is like these, quote unquote nasty foods, right? And
Right.
that's one thing I've been able to show her, is that like we can make some super awesome meals that hit the macros that we need to hit, that
Mm-hmm.
you're like, that she wants to continue to have, that now that we have on a regular basis. And then for our kids, they're 2 years old and 6 months old, so like that's just going to be how they grow up. So it's not going to be, this crazy thing of, they're just going to understand like, oh, this is just how I eat. This is, this
Yeah,
is this is
they're
just
not gonna
normal.
miss it.
Exactly. And it's been really fun, because like we've been experimenting, like using oat flour instead of regular flour, getting some extra fiber, a little less carbs, and we can make our own oat flour, because it's really simple. You just toss some rolled oats into the blender and blend it up into a fine powder. Like,
Mm-hmm.
just kind of finding, um I, the thing that we've been enjoying is finding things that are accessible but not expensive, right? Because you can go down that health trap and really get
Yeah.
caught up in that organic, like there is some stuff that I'd like to try with almond flour, coconut flour, but it's like that's kind of expensive. So how can I help normal people relate to that? Is, well, I'll be the guinea pig. Like last night, I tried to make a, pizza dough that was, instead of almond flour, I was trying to use oat flour just to see how it turned out. It failed completely miserable. It was just super crumbly, didn't work out. But I'm okay to try that, and me and my wife had a lot of fun making that together. When you were making your changes, though, did you kind of have that like mentality of, oh, I just need to do this on my own, or kind of what was your starting point with that?
Well, let's see. My wife and I have always kind of worked out together. Not, we've always done some cardio and some just trying to be active type of things. We were always at the Y while our boys were growing up, and so for a long time, she and I had been looking at eating correctly and the like. So she was on board. You know, we each had our those things that we didn't like giving up. As a matter of fact, right now I'm in the throes of giving up caffeine, and I have felt horrible for like 3 days. I had no idea. I was drinking like 3 cups of coffee, 4 cups of coffee a day, and I didn't realize what an impact it really had on my life. And they're saying 2 to 9 days to get over the withdrawals. But to answer your question, she was pretty much on board. Her mother died of ovarian cancer.
Okay.
When I first met her, her mother had just died. So she was on board. She was looking at, changing some things in her life. And she quit eating meat in college. It's just the way she was. It just didn't appeal to her anymore. So, like I said, she came along and she's always been supportive, and we've worked it out together.
That's awesome. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just say that's awesome, because just having like that support system is crucial, because having someone on board, like my wife, she has always been on board, and because it was so foreign to her, it was more of like my issue of, instead of me just taking time to explain to her why something's important, I was just like, oh, I'll just do it myself. Well, that can be taxing, like making all of my food all day long all by myself and then still trying to do other things. But instead, I just make it a fun experience for, us together, and it takes a lot of stress off of me. So I think, just regardless of how you get there, just being on the same page with your spouse, whether or not you have the exact same goals, just being on an open level of communication is really crucial.
Well, I know that she wanted my wife, Trish, she wanted to be helpful because she wanted me to stay around for a while.
Yeah, so selfish reasons, right? she didn't want to lose you.
No.
So yeah, I mean, and sometimes you do have those great external motivators like that, where it's just like a very present of like, I have to take care of myself because I've been lucky twice. I don't know if I'll get lucky the third time or not.
Well, here's what I found out. Here's what I found out a lot when I went to after I had the stent put in. I was actually as soon as I got home, I started Googling how to stop heart disease. And I found a book by Dr. Esselstyn. He's with, and he's been with the Cleveland Clinic for many years. It was called How to Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease. And it was a major change. You had to change everything. I mean, if you wanted to actually reverse the heart, the plaque in your arteries, if you wanted to live, and a lot of people in his group that he worked with for 18 or 19 years, some of them were giving up. Doctors said, no, we can't operate on you. We can't give you any bypass. You need to go home and make things right with your family. And they joined his program. And over the years, they actually saw reduction of the plaque and, the narrowing of the arteries. So when I saw that, I even called him. And he was very gracious, and he talked to me for a little bit. But as far as I was concerned, it didn't matter what it took. I was not going to go through that again. Yeah. Now, it's easy to backslide, and you do, but somehow to get back on track again. But when I was in rehab, uh, insurance made you go through rehab, and you would get your heart rate up, and they'd come over and check. You'd be on a treadmill, or you'd be doing something to keep your heart rate up on different machines and different procedures. And I'd see people, different ages on the treadmill next to me, and I'd always say, "Hey, so what got you here?" And they told me they had a stent or this, that, or the other thing. I said, "Are you doing anything to change your lifestyle?" "Oh, the doctor said, less fat, this, that, and the other thing." And I said, "Okay, you taking any medication?" "Oh, yeah, I'm on a statin and this, that, and the other thing." I'm not even on a statin. I wouldn't be on a statin, and the reasons for that, and that's a whole other podcast. But
yeah.
Once you start realizing that you have the control, you got yourself to where you are, you can get yourself to where you need to be. And that, yes, takes a lot of discipline, and that just takes the mindset of, what? I can do this if I want to do it. There's the biggest battle right there.
100%. I mean, talking about that, it's every day I'm just, you and I have kind of had special instances where we've seen the ability for our bodies to recover, but every day I just think about how amazing the human body is, and if given the right nutrients, if given the right tools, what it's able to do. I mean, even when you abuse your body over and over, the things that it's still able to do and how it's able to recover is crucial. And I like that a lot because and no offense to doctors, but they spend a lot of time learning how to fix issues with medicine. They're a medical doctor.
Right.
They don't go to school for that long, and they don't spend that much time focusing on nutrition. So relatively, a doctor's nutritional advice is really poor. Like they're just gonna cite the most recent study that showed something. I mean, how many times, I know in just my lifetime, have we seen a flip flop saying egg yolks are good for you? Oh, egg yolks are bad. Just eat egg whites. Oh, actually, egg yolks are really good. They have good fats in them. And now it's even like talking about how cholesterol is not innately bad. And
No, that's right.
and so it's just like, and I've gone through all that in just 26 years, like, which is such a small time because science is advancing so quick, where it's like the doctors are just going to give advice based on trends rather than
Yes.
you looking at saying, when I eat this, I feel better. Like for me personally, when I go into like a keto style diet of lower carb, higher fat, I feel a lot clearer and I function a lot better. Where I know some other people, higher carb fats work a lot better, or higher carb diets work a lot better for them. So it's like being able to learn what works best for you and how your body feels.
And we can't always be guaranteed that our organic food is as good organic as we want it to be. But I heard something that was said not too long ago, and it says that if you don't take time for your health, you're going to have to make time for your illness.
Yeah.
And that's going to cost you. Yeah. That's going to cost you time for work. That's going to cost you quality time with your family, because when you're sick, you're feeling bad about maybe being a burden on your family. You don't feel like being the dad or the husband that you want to be. So it's worth whatever investment financially, time-wise, that you have to put in to be the person that God made you to be. And like I said, we have, and you said too, we have just incredible bodies if we will work with our body, but most of the time we're working against it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point, is that at the end of the day, it may take a little bit more effort to sit down and make your food every day. And there's different, you don't have to make it every day. You could just have one day a week where you make it and you prep it out, or you can make it every day,
Yep.
Depending on what makes the food more appetizing to you. For me, I like making it every day because I like a fresh meal. But
whatever makes sense to you.
Yeah, it's like whatever works for you and makes you enjoy it at the end of the day. Because hey, you know what? Organic stuff's expensive. You don't have to buy it, because you know what? You can buy what food you have available and make it at home. and you're already probably doing 50% better just because you made the food yourself instead of going out to buy it to eat. And then on top of that, the money that you spent to make that meal, you're probably saving 80% making it home versus going out somewhere to eat it, to buy and eat it. Like there's a very big stigma that eating healthy is expensive. And it's really not. Like a lot of my meals that I make really break down to like $2 to $3 a meal for the portion size that I'm eating. And that's just a primary protein, rice, or some other kind of very neutral carb, and then I'll have a veggie or a fruit mixed in. And a lot of like, it's really not that expensive to go buy a bunch of asparagus or broccoli or frozen broccoli or whatever, you know, cauliflower, like all this stuff is available to you. You can buy it, and when you are willing to put in a little bit of effort, it's really not more expensive. At the minimum, you'll break even.
Yeah, that's it. Well, you can break even from a dollar standpoint, maybe.
Yeah.
But if you've got look at the bigger picture, you're going to save money with doctor bills, time missed from work because you're healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, the benefits absolutely are incredible.
I feel like people I feel like people don't see it as an investment. It's like people are for say Tesla, for example, people are down to toss $1,000 into a Tesla share because they're like, this is an investment that's going to pay off for me in the future. Well, how about you invest in your health, and that's 100% going to pay off because you're going to be around longer, so your ability to make more money is going to go up because you're around longer. Your performance at work is probably going to be higher because you're functioning on a better level, and your quality time with your family is probably going to be higher because you're able to do the things that you want. And like you said, I'm not missing work because I'm sick. So guess what? I'm there at work and I'm performing more when other people are missing work because they're sick. I'm there, so that makes me reliable and dependent. So who's the person they go to? Who's the person my family goes to? So it's just and that's one thing that helped me change my mindset is that I'm not wasting this money, or I'm not doing other things on a diet